And that's the heart of a healthy apology. You show up with honesty. You take responsibility. You give them space to speak, and you don't lose yourself in guilt or overcorrecting. You're not there to fix every emotion in the room. You're there to own your part and keep growing into the person that you're trying to be.
You've tried to quit before. Maybe it worked for a while. Maybe it didn't. But deep down, you know sobriety isn't just about not drinking. It's about finding peace, purpose, and finding yourself again. Welcome to the Sober and Happy Podcast. Each week, Tim shares hard-earned lessons from his own decade of recovery, real talk, real methods, and the mindset that helped him turn the fight of sobriety into a life he actually loves. This is the Sober and Happy Podcast. Now, here's your host, Tim Phillips.
Welcome back to the Sober and Happy Podcast. This is Tim, and today we're talking about how to repair the relationships that were hurt during our drinking days without losing the progress and growth that we fought for in our sobriety. You see, when you first get sober, one of the first things that hits you is a clear picture of how you showed up in your relationships. This happened to me almost immediately. I started remembering the ways that I hurt people, the promises that I broke, and the people that I cut out of my life. And then there were the things that I did to others where the guilt felt so heavy that I drank to escape it. But once the alcohol was gone, those things came back. And that's usually when we start to realize that we need to repair the damage that we created. And now that's all part of healing, but it can get overwhelming if you don't slow down and stay grounded. There are things from our past that need to be addressed, real apologies that need to be said, real amends that need to be made. But healing relationships also means figuring out how to move forward without drowning yourself in shame, sacrificing who you're trying to become, or trying to fix everything in one night. And once that clarity shows up of who we were, something else usually comes with it. The guilt and responsibility we've been trying to outrun for years. This is where a lot of people get stuck because our minds tend to swing to extremes. On one side, you have people who take on way too much. This is where you fall into that everything is my fault mindset. You start carrying blame that isn't yours. You apologize for things you didn't do. You rewrite entire relationships in your head as if you were the only problem in them. And at first, it feels like you're being responsible, but really you're just beating yourself up. On the other side, you have the opposite reaction, which is the everyone is against me mindset. Instead of taking too much blame, you dodge all of it. This usually comes from the same place, fear and shame, but it shows up in a very different way. It becomes easier to point at the other person and say that they're the problem. They're unforgiving. They're too dramatic. They don't get how hard you're trying. And while some people are harsh or unfair, living in that space keeps you from actually growing. And then there's the third version, where you start believing that God or the universe is out to punish you. I've been there myself. Felt like every bad thing in my life was some part of a plan aimed directly at me. But looking back, that's just shame mixed with a giant ego. Like I'm so important that the entire universe was designed to monitor and punish me. And when I'm in that mindset, all it does is keep me from taking the steps that would actually move my life forward because I was able to convince myself that my fate is already set by someone out to get me. Here's the thing. None of those mindsets are about truth. They're about protection. Our brains will choose almost anything, even misery, if it helps us avoid facing hard emotions. But true accountability sits right in the middle. It sounds more like, I had a part in this. I need to own it. But I'm also not responsible for everything that ever went wrong. And I'm not doomed to be punished for the rest of my life. And that's where healing can actually start. Because when you're not drowning yourself in blame or pushing all the blame away or blaming the universe itself, you finally have space to grow, repair what can be repaired, and move forward with some real clarity. And when you finally stop fighting yourself, the next thing that comes into focus is how to repair things with people you care about. And for most of us, that starts with learning how to apologize in a way that's real and grounded, something a lot of us were never taught how to do. A healthy apology is simple, honest, and direct. It's not about proving you're a good person now. It's not about getting the other person to forgive you right away. It's about owning your part and then giving them space to share how it affected them. For me, this is what a good apology looks like. I start by recognizing that I haven't been the friend, brother, son, partner, whatever the relationship is, that they deserved. Then I name the things I know I did. Not every mistake in my entire life, but the specific things that will apply to that person. And I apologize for those things clearly and directly. If I owe them something concrete like money, I lay out a clear plan for paying it back or making it right. People don't just want words. They want to see you're willing to take action. Then I ask them if I missed anything or if there's anything they want me to hear. And this is the part I had to learn the hard way. Once I ask for that, I stop talking. I don't jump in to explain the backstory or to defend myself or to soften the blow. I just sit there and listen. They deserve that space. And honestly, it becomes part of your healing too. The listening doesn't mean sitting there while someone unloads the same story over and over again or brings up every mistake you've made since middle school. There's a difference between someone expressing their pain and someone being stuck in it. If that conversation starts looping, they're repeating the same accusation in different words, you could gently guide them forward without shutting them down. Saying something like, I hear you, and I really do understand how much that hurt, and I want to make this right. And I'd like to talk about how we can move forward from here and shift things into a healthier space. You're not telling them to stop talking. You're not dismissing their feelings. You're just helping both of you step out of the loop and into something productive. And that's the heart of a healthy apology. You show up with honesty. You take responsibility. You give them space to speak, and you don't lose yourself in guilt or overcorrecting. You're not there to fix every emotion in the room. You're there to own your part and keep growing into the person that you're trying to be. And after that, the next challenge that usually shows up is rebuilding trust. This part can be tough because by the time most of us get sober, we've made a lot of promises we didn't follow through on. We've said things like, I'll never drink again, or I promise I'll stop. And even if we meant it at the time, our actions didn't line up. Eventually, the people around us learn to not rely on our words. Here's the part we have to accept. People don't trust your words. They trust your patterns. They trust what you do over time, not what you promise in a moment. A lot of us try to rebuild trust by saying big things about who we're going to become. We want to reassure people. We want them to feel safe with us again. And sometimes they even ask us directly, promise me you'll never drink again, or promise me you'll never hurt me like that again. And it's tempting to give into that promise because we want to fix the fear in the room. We want to show them that we're serious. But the truth is, future promises don't rebuild trust. Living differently does. Whenever someone asks me to make a promise about my future behavior, I try to be honest with them without being defensive. I'll say something like, I can't promise the future, but I could promise what I'm doing today. And I'm committed to showing you through my actions, not just words. That takes the pressure off you having to be perfect while still showing them that you're serious about change. And here's why that matters. Trust isn't rebuilt in one conversation. Rebuilt through consistency, through showing up the same way over and over again, through letting someone else see that your actions today match the person you're trying to become. Think of it like this. When someone gets bit by a dog, even if they love dogs, their body reacts long before their mind does. They flinch, they tense up, they're cautious, even if the new dog is friendly. They're not doing it to punish the new dog. It's just how the nervous system works. It's the same way with people who are hurt by our past behaviors. Even if they want to trust you again, even if they want to see you're trying, their body may still react out of old fear. They might double check things. They might question your motives. They might hold back emotionally. That's not just them being difficult. That's their nervous system saying, let's make sure that we're safe this time. The important thing is to not take it personally. You don't have to convince them you've changed. You don't have to push for forgiveness or get frustrated that they don't celebrate your progress as loudly as you wish they would. Your job is simple. Keep living in a way that lets them see the change at their own pace. And here's something else. Some people will update their view of you. They'll see the growth. They'll see the consistency, and the relationship will soften again. Others will stay stuck in the past version of you no matter what you do. And that's painful, but it's also out of your control. Rebuilding trust is never about forcing someone to see you differently. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need to prove anything, and your actions will do the talking. But here's the part we don't talk about enough. Even if trust starts to rebuild, the relationship itself may not fit your life anymore. Sobriety has a way of reshaping things, and not everybody is meant to be in our lives moving forward. A lot of us built relationships around fantasy versions of people. We imagine who they could be if they changed, or if we changed, or if life magically lined up. But the real healing only happens with the person who actually exists in front of us today, not the version we imagine they could be. And some relationships were never built on anything healthy to begin with. Sometimes the only thing we had in common with someone was drinking, partying, chaos, or avoiding our problems together. And once the alcohol is gone, the relationship doesn't have anything holding it up. It's not failure, it's just the truth finally showing itself. Sobriety also means we start growing, and not everyone is going to grow with us. Some people will want to stay exactly where they are. Some prefer the old versions of us because it made their life feel easier. And we can't force someone to evolve just because we are. So part of healing is learning to let go of relationships that don't survive your growth. You could still care about them. You could still wish them well, but you don't have to shrink yourself to keep the connection alive. Sometimes the healthiest thing you could do is honor what the relationship was and accept that it no longer fits the person you're becoming. And when you start accepting that, the next thing that usually shows up is the need for boundaries. This is where people tend to overcomplicate things. We hear the word and think it means creating a big list of rules for how everyone else has to act. But that's not what boundaries are at all. A boundary is really just you becoming clear about what you will and won't accept in your life. It's something you control, not something you force other people to follow. And the more grounded you get in sobriety, the more these boundaries start to matter. Not because you're trying to push people away, but because you're trying to protect the person you're growing into. One mistake I see a lot, and I've done it myself, is oversetting boundaries. That's usually when we start finally caring about ourselves, and then we go way overboard. We hand people a long list of instructions about how they have to behave around us. Don't say this, don't bring that up, talk to me only this way, only reach out during these certain times. And before we know it, we're not setting boundaries anymore. We're trying to control an entire environment so we never have to feel uncomfortable. But boundaries aren't about controlling anyone else. They're just about clarity. They help you stay true to who you're becoming without demanding that everyone else rearrange their whole personality for you. Now, here's a simple example. Let's say you used to meet your friend every Friday for lunch, and the two of you always had drinks together. A healthy boundary would sound like, I'd really like to keep our Friday lunches, but right now it's too hard for me to be around alcohol. We keep doing lunch. I need you not to drink while we're there. That's clear, honest, and it focuses on what you need to stay healthy and sober. An overset boundary would be demanding that they never drink around you and then getting upset when you see them with a drink in their hand at a mutual friend's wedding. That's not a boundary, that's control. And here's the part that a lot of us forget. People are allowed to say no to your boundary. Your friend might respond with something like, hey, I get it, but I really enjoy my Friday drinks, so I'm going to keep doing that. When you're able to be around alcohol again without risking your sobriety, I'd love for you to join me. And even though that can sting, it's completely fair. They're not rejecting you. They're just being honest about what works for them. Your boundary might change the dynamic, but it doesn't give you power over their choices. Just like you're allowed to set boundaries, other people are allowed to set theirs. Someone might say they need space. Someone might not want you to revisit certain topics. Someone might not be ready to rebuild the relationship yet. And part of healing is respecting that without taking it as a personal attack. Now, on the flip side, what about when someone doesn't respect your boundaries? You don't need to argue or convince them. You don't need to repeat yourself 10 different ways. You simply follow through. If you say you won't stay on the phone while someone is yelling at you and they start yelling, you calmly end the call. You say you won't be around heavy drinking and someone pulls out a bottle, you leave. Your boundary is what you do, not what they agree to. Sometimes boundaries even bump up against your values. Maybe you value staying close to family, but you also know that you can't let certain people drag you back into old patterns. And that's where you find the middle ground. Maybe you don't cut them off completely, but you also don't give them the same access to you that they once had. You could love someone and still protect your peace. At the end of the day, boundaries aren't walls, they're guidance. They make it possible to grow without losing yourself and to stay connected to people without letting old patterns pull you backwards. And when you step back and you look at all this together, it really comes down to one simple idea. Healing relationships isn't about becoming perfect or undoing every mistake. It's about becoming someone you could trust and letting your relationships shift around that. Some relationships will heal, some won't, and some will end up looking very different than they used to. None of that means you're doing anything wrong. Sobriety gives us the space to see things clearly, who we were, who other people actually are, and which connections could grow alongside us instead of holding us in our old patterns. The goal isn't to force every old connection to survive your healing. The goal is to build a life where you don't have to lose yourself just to keep a relationship alive. You take responsibility for what you need to take responsibility for. You repair the things that could genuinely be repaired. You set boundaries where they're needed, and you respect the boundaries other people set with you. And then you allow whatever happens next to happen in its own time. Healing doesn't always mean everything comes back together. Sometimes healing means releasing the version of your relationship you hope for and accepting the one that actually exists. Sometimes it means choosing peace over chaos, or clarity over the fantasy of what someone might someday become, or choosing growth even when staying the same might feel easier in the moment. You don't need every relationship from your past to make it to your future. You just need to keep showing up as the person you're becoming, and everything will work out. And if there's one thing I really hope you take from this episode, the idea that you could heal relationships without losing yourself. And at the same time, you could lose relationships without losing your sobriety. So as you go into the rest of your week, my challenge for you is simple. Think about one relationship, and I mean just one, where you know something needs a little attention. Maybe it's an apology. Maybe it's a boundary that needs to be set. Maybe it's finally accepting that things have changed. That is usually where the real healing begins. And before we close out today, I just want to say this. This episode brought up some heavy stuff for you. That's okay. Healing relationships, especially the ones that got tangled up in our addiction, is emotional work. You're not supposed to have it all figured out. None of us do. What matters is that you're willing to look at it honestly and take things one step at a time. You're not alone in any of this. You're learning, you're growing, and you're showing up in ways the old version of you probably couldn't. And I want you to give yourself credit for that. If this episode helped you or made you see something differently, I'd love if you shared it with someone who might need it. And if you're listening and thinking, man, I don't even know where to start with all this, then just start with that one small step we talked about. One honest conversation, one boundary, one moment of clarity. That's enough for today. All right. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate you being here, and I'm proud of the work you're doing, even the work nobody else sees. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, keep living sober and happy.
Thanks for listening to the Sober and Happy podcast with Tim Phillips. If today's episode connected with you, share it with someone who needs it. You can follow Tim on social at I Am Sober and Happy and visit soberandhappy.com for tools, motivation, and more episodes. Remember, quitting drinking is just the beginning. The real goal is learning to love yourself and love your life. This has been the Sober and Happy podcast. See you next time.